Okay, eighth grade history students, just a few things I want to do today. It'll take less than 10 minutes probably. And I might even ask some questions on these, so make sure you watch these. If you have your workbook with you, I'm going to be reading from your workbook, page 153. It's a really good speech, and then I'm going to give another one, and that's how we're going to have class today. Again, if you need to get in touch with me about some ideas for your muckraking paper, let me know. I just need to know where your problem is, and I can probably help you. So after the Civil War, the South was a tough place for the black American, and Jim Crow laws restricted the mobility and the freedoms of the freed slaves. And you couldn't attend school, socialize, even work with white men and women. And politics just reinforced it, the political Southern, the democratic structure that was in place for decades afterwards. So Booker T. Washington answers this question, like, what do you do when you're a black American? You have supposed rights because you're free. So he spoke to an exposition. I think it was in Atlanta. This is up from slavery, and this is what he says. He says, 1/3 of the population of the South is of the Negro race. No enterprise seeking the material, civil, or moral welfare of this section can disregard this element of our population and reach the highest success. Basically, you have to pay attention to us because we're 1/3 of all Americans. I but convey to you the sentiment of the masses of my race when I say that no way have the value and manhood of the American Negro been more fittingly and generously recognized than by the managers of this magnificent exposition at every stage of its progress. Expositions were like trade shows. We have them at the Boston Expo Center. We still have them today. It's a big event, job fairs, that type of thing, where they show off inventions, that kind of thing. So it is a recognition that will do more to cement the friendship of the two races than any other occurrence since the dawn of our freedom. So progress is being made. Let's work with the whites and blacks together now, he says. And we'll have a new era of industrial progress. Ignorant and inexperienced, it is not strange that in the first years of our new life when we were freed, we began at the top instead of at the bottom, that a seat in Congress or the state legislature was more sought than real estate or industrial skill, that the political convention or stump speaking had more attractions than starting a dairy farm or truck garden. He says it's funny. We're finally free and we're trying to get our freedom. We're trying to move up in society. And what are we doing? Trying to start from the top down. He said, no, we need to work from the bottom up. And I'm going to be talking while I get my water that I'm cooking. Water? Do you cook water? No, you don't cook water. But if I don't take care of my water, guess what's going to happen? We're going to have water that actually catches fire, and that would not be very good, would it now? So we're back in business here. The water's been shut off, and we're going back to the essay. A ship, now watch this. This is the main point. A ship lost at sea for many days suddenly sighted a friendly vessel. All right, picture that. From the mast of the unfortunate vessel was seen a signal. Water, water, we die of thirst. The answer from the friendly vessel that was sighted at once came back. Cast down your bucket where you are. A second time the signal, water, water, send us water, ran up from the distressed vessel and was answered, cast down your bucket where you are. A third and fourth signal was sent the same way. The captain of the distressed vessel that had been lost at sea at last, heeding the injunction, cast down his bucket, and it came up full, fresh, sparkling water from the mouth of the Amazon River. Okay? Now, this person thought, yeah, we're going to die of thirst. We can't drop down our bucket and drink it because we're in the Atlantic Ocean. But remember, the Amazon River gushes out into the Atlantic Ocean, and for 200 miles there's fresh water. To those of my race who depend on bettering their condition in a foreign land or who underestimate the importance of cultivating friendly relations with a southern white man who is a next door neighbor, I would say, cast down your bucket where you are. Cast it down in making friends in every manly way of the people of all races by whom you are surrounded. So basically, kind of like the Christian faith. Definitely there's a Christian influence here too, by the way. But basically he's saying, hey, you make a difference where you are. Don't go out looking for something incredible. You're faithful in little things, God will raise up your state. Cast it down in agriculture, mechanics, commerce, domestic service, and in the professions. And in this connection, it is well to bear in mind that whatever other sins the South may be called to bear, when it comes to business, pure and simple, it is in the South that the Negro is given a man's chance in the commercial world. And in nothing is this exposition more eloquent than in emphasizing this chance, that we have a chance to actually cast our bucket down here. Our greatest danger is the giant leap from slavery to freedom. We may overlook the fact that the masses of us are to live by the productions of our hands and fail to keep in mind that we shall prosper in proportion as we learn to dignify and glorify common labor. You know, it's funny, I landscape for a lot of people who have children in high school who are more than able to take care of their properties, but they don't. And I think, why do they do that? Why are they hiring me and pay big bucks to hire me to take care of their property when their kids can do it? And I don't think they realize that their kids are learning valuable lessons in hard work and working outside, working with their hands. Booker T. Washington knew that here. And he says it's not undignified to work with your hands and to work out. The garbage man is just as noble as the accountant, the lawyer, the doctor. Because God can use any people, no matter where they are. So then he goes on, top of page 154, fifth line down. No race can prosper till it learns that there is as much dignity in tilling a field as in writing a poem. It is at the bottom of our life we must begin and not at the top, nor should we permit our grievances to overshadow our opportunities. So he wants his fellow freed slaves to, hey, prosper where you are, and God will allow you gradually to move up. That's just his thinking. If you read the book Up from Slavery, I love it. I love it. And today you see the product of that thinking. We have Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court. We've had African Americans run for president. Now, are we where we should be? Probably not. But is there still racism? I know there is. That doesn't make it right. But what I'm saying is, no matter what race you are, take what God's given you. And there's so many scriptural examples of what's called the rags to riches story. God takes people who have no esteem and works them up and puts them up to a higher location in society. It's called vertical social mobility. And then on page 159, Roosevelt's speech following his assassination attempt. Remember, I told you that guy John Schrank shot him, and his speech and his glass case protected him, but the bullet was still inside him. This is what he says. He spoke right after that. Friends, I shall ask you to be as quiet as possible. I don't know whether you fully understand that I've just been shot, but it takes more than that to kill a bull moose. Fortunately, I had my manuscript, so you see I was going to make a long speech, and there is a bullet. Bullet went through, and it probably saved me from it going into my heart. My bullet is in me now, so that I cannot make a very long speech, but I'll try my best. I love this guy. Oh, Teddy Roosevelt. And now, friends, I want to take advantage of this incident to say a word of solemn warning to my fellow countrymen. First of all, I want to say this about myself. I have altogether two important things to think of to feel any concern over my own death. And now I cannot speak to you insincerely within 5 minutes of being shot. I'm telling you the literal truth. I love this. When I say that my concern is for many other things, it's not in the least for my own life. I want you to understand that I am ahead of the game anyway. No man has had a happier life than I have led. A happier life in every way. I've been able to do certain things that I greatly wish to do, and I'm interested in doing other things. I can tell you with absolute truthfulness that I am very much uninterested as whether I'm shot or not. It's just as when I was a colonel in my regiment. I always felt that a private was to be excused for feeling at times some pangs of anxiety about his personal safety. But I cannot understand a man fit to be a colonel who can pay any heed to his personal safety when he is occupied as he ought to be with the absorbing desire to do his duty. I mentioned Roosevelt Sunday. I went for a 2-hour walk in the woods, and I mentioned this to the people I was with. I was saying, I feel like Teddy Roosevelt out here. We don't, to be honest, we got lost. I am in this cause with my whole heart and soul. I believe that the progressive movement is making life a little easier for all of our people. A movement to try to take the burdens off the men, especially the women and children of this country. I'm absorbed in the success of that movement. And if you look on page 158, you see what the 3 presidents did, the progressive presidents did. You remember, because you gave me the keynotes on that. We've talked about it enough. But they all improved life for Americans. Friends, I ask you now this evening to accept that I'm saying, and what I'm saying is absolutely true. When I tell you that I'm not thinking of my own success, I'm thinking of my life. I'm not thinking of my life or anything connected with me personally. I'm thinking of the movement. I say this by way of introduction because I want to say something very serious to our people, and especially to the newspapers. I don't know anything about who the man was who shot me tonight. He was seized at once by one of the stenographers in my party. He's the one who transcribes the speeches into words. Mr. Martin, and I suppose he is now in the hands of the police. He shot to kill. He shot. The bullet went in here. I'll show you. He gestures to his chest. I'm going to ask you to be as quiet as possible, as I'm not able to give the challenge of the bull moose quite as loudly. Now, I do not know who he was or what he represented. He was a coward. He stood in the darkness in the crowd around the automobile, and when they cheered me and I got up to bow, he stepped forward and shot me in the darkness. I love this guy. Did I say that before? Now, friends, of course, I do not know, as I say, anything about him, but it is a very natural thing that weak and vicious minds should be inflamed to acts of violence by the kind of awful mendacity like a beggar, and abuse that have been heaped upon me for the last 3 months by the papers in the interest of not only Mr. Debs. Mr. Debs was their day's Bernie Sanders, but of Mr. Wilson, Democrat, and Mr. Taft. Now, remember what I said back then, Monday, I think it was. Because Taft, at this time, is running as a bull moose Republican, and Taft is also a Republican, and they're running against Wilson. Well, you have 3 people running, three parties, bull moose, Republican, Democrat. Wilson won, so, because the Republican vote was split. And so, I don't want to go on, but I just want to show you his attitude. I love the way that he's fearless. He keeps on saying, I don't care about being shot. He wanted to make sure, page 160 mentioned the haves and the have-nots, and the have-nots increased their situation in life. And that's what the progressive movement was about. So this wraps up today. Friday, I'm actually going to get into World War I. We're going to start World War I because we're in the 19 teens. World War I starts in 14. We're going to take a little time there. So that's it for today. 13 minutes and 30 seconds. Have a good Wednesday. I'll see you Friday.